afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us on the KTN Newsdesk on this 11th day of April 2016. We have a lot planned up for you. Top on our stories today, Murimi Mwangi will be joining us to shed more light on the pressure that is being mounted on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And of course, Abi Agina will be coming in as well to tell us what next for the banking sector. Of course, we have seen issues with some banks being placed under receivership and some facility being set up to help steady or help the banking sector be steady. These are some of the issues we will be looking at this hour. My name is Akisandera. Glad you could join us. Now we begin with mounting pressure on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to inspire confidence in its ability to carry out credible elections next year. A section of the religious community has weighed in on the matter, adding to increasing dissenting voices from across the political divide. But the IEBC commissioners have in the past said they are ready to pack and go if Parliament petitions for the disbandment of the present IEBC. The term of the present IEBC commissioners expires on November the 9th next year. Here's what the commissioners said in strongly worded statements a fortnight ago.
Just exercising our mandate under the Constitution, and we are being accused of leaning towards particular political divide. That is not the position. We have done our work in accordance with the law.
Well, there are a lot of people who have called for us to be disbanded. All I can assure you, as far as I am concerned, the Waswahili wanasema riziki iko na Mungu. I'm ready to go home today if Parliament feels that I'm not doing a good job. But I know deep in my heart, we as commissioners have done the best we could have done.
And joining us now to put that particular issue into perspective is our political reporter, Murimi Mwangi, who is joining us from the City Center studio. But Murimi Mwangi, beg your pardon, will be joining us in a few. But before we get to Murimi, Kitutu Masaba, Member of Parliament Timothy Bosire, has sued Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet and Attorney General Githu Muigai for withdrawing his security detail after he declined to stand up during the State of the Nation address by President Uhuru Kenyatta in Parliament nearly 2 weeks ago. We're now joined by Honorable Timothy Bosire on phone just to give us a perspective on what is really going on. Bwana Timothy, thank you very much for joining us. Kindly explain to us the situation as of now.
Thank you, Lillian. This morning, my security, which is a fundamental right to every Kenyan, and in particular a member of Parliament and the NFIP, was withdrawn without any notice or any information as to why. And there were indications from the day when the President visited Parliament, and the section of us, members of Parliament, raised points of order for matters that we thought are important and of interest to Kenyans. But we were denied the chance to put across the information. Whatever the case, security is a guarantee and a fundamental right to every citizen, to which I am entitled also. Article 47 subsection 2 is very clear on this matter, that freedom is a fundamental right to which I deserve. But the way and the manner in which the government has chosen to withdraw has caused concern on me on the matter of security, and I decided to seek my rights in the courts of law, and I expect to get it back. Madam Lillian, thank you.
Now, did you get any notifications before the withdrawal of your security? Were you notified about the situation?
Any whatsoever, and it is interesting and strange indeed, because whatever went on in Parliament, it went on in a privileged house, where standing orders clearly guide on how business is transacted. And in any case, there isn't much that went on that would have warranted this kind of situation. And I don't expect the President to have authorized this. anyone, any supporting office to the president is proper functioning of his office, which might have taken this into its own decision-making and withdrew my security, is very unfortunate. And I don't expect the president to have authorized this.
So what next? What are you planning on doing? Are you planning on taking any action?
Naturally, I expect to get my rights in court. I've already filed this. Tomorrow they will listen to what I have filed, and I expect to get express orders for the reinstatement of my security. And I expect every other Kenyan who deserves security to be given the security. And every other Kenyan who has an idea to express should express it properly and formally for the benefit of this country. The manner in which they have handled my matter has to do with what I will naturally conclude to be intimidation and the frustration of my activities and thinking on how I would like to see this country served the best.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. That is Honorable Timothy Bosire joining us via phone. His security detail has been withdrawn after he failed to stand up with the others during the State of the Nation address by President Uhuru Kenyatta barely a fortnight ago. Of course, he is decrying the withdrawal of his security, which he says he's going to fight in a court. Says he's already filed a case in court, and we will be taking interest in that particular case and bringing you up to date with the same. But as I had earlier mentioned, the mounting pressure on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to inspire confidence in its ability to carry out credible elections, next year. A section of the religious community has weighed in on the matter, adding to increasing dissenting voices from across the political divide. But the IEBC commissioners have in the past said they are ready to pack and go if Parliament petitions for the disbandment of the present IEBC. The term of the present IEBC commissioners expires on November the 9th next year. Here's what the commissioners said in strongly worded statements about a fortnight ago. And joining us now to put this particular story into perspective, of course, we'd earlier shown the feelings and the sentiments of the particular commissioners. Joining us now is Murimi Mwangi, our political reporter, joining us from the City Center studios, just to help us understand the kind of pressure the IEBC are in, what is the way out for them, and if not, what next? Murimi Mwangi, thank you very much for joining us this hour. We will just get straight into it. The IEBC has been facing a lot of attacks related to its credibility. We have less than 16 months into an election. What does this say about preparations for elections?
Good afternoon, Akisa. Of course, the IEBC has come under so much pressure, be it from whatever political outfit, even from the ruling coalition that had previously been out defending the IEBC on various occasions when there have been complaints coming from the court coalition. But interestingly, IEBC itself has come out to defend their credibility ahead of the 2017 general elections. You remember shortly after the rejection of the COA Kenya signatures, the IEBC commissioners, led by their chairperson, came out to clearly say, much as the commission has of late become like the punching bag of any disgruntled political outfit out there, the commission is up to the task and they are ready to do their job, and given the chance in 2017, they are ready to conduct a credible general elections. Of course, again, some of the commissioners insisting that they've been doing their job okay, but if any Kenyan out there, not necessarily a politician, is dissatisfied with the manner in which they have been doing their job, he or she can petition Parliament to disband the commission, and they'll be ready to go home anytime. But interestingly, Akisa, you realize that all these complaints are coming at a time when we are basically 16 to 17 months to the August 2017 polls, and therefore, no doubt, IEBC has quite a task to come out clearly to defend their credibility as we await the 2017 general elections. But of course, they have done that on various occasions. Whenever a complaint comes against the IEBC, we've seen them calling for press conferences to set the record straight. And perhaps the most memorable one was that one where the IEBC opened up the Okoa Kenya signatures sometime last month to members of the public to get to look at what was in contention. Akisa.
Now, Murimi, let us talk about the term of this particular commissioners and, of course, the chairman. The term ends 3 months after the general elections next year. 3 months after an election, we usually still have issues with the election and even possibilities of runoffs. Will we be plunged into a constitutional crisis come then?
Interestingly, Akisa, the same question has been put before the IEBC commissioners and even the chairperson before, and they are categorical that you need not extend their term beyond November 9th next year when it's supposed to expire. But even looking at the constitutionally stipulated dates, you know, after August 8th, when we have the 2017 election, the IEBC is supposed to declare the winner in 7 days. Perhaps if there's a contention, whoever is dissatisfied with the results can move to the Supreme Court in 7 days, and the Supreme Court is supposed to conclude hearing whatever petition comes by in 14 days with regard to the presidency. And if you give them another 60 days, which is the constitutionally stipulated time upon which they're supposed to conduct a fresh poll, you realize that's still within the duration of time that they will be in office, because their term expires in November 9th. And the IEBC Commission officials have been categorical that you need not extend their term or for you to facilitate proper 2017 elections and even possible runoff or getting a fresh poll in event that the elections are nullified. But remember, again, at the same time, pressure has again come from even the office of the Ombudsman, who has insisted that the commissioners need to go home early to create space for new commissioners to come in and take up that role so that they are set for the job come 2017. But the present commissioners insist that they are up to task and they are ready to conduct that job come next year and give us a credible poll on August 8th, 2017. Akisa.
Before I let you go, do we have any possible scenario where the IEBC commissioners will be forced to go home early enough before the general elections?
Now, most of the analysts that you speak to with regards to that matter and the entire complaint over the IEBC and even some asking for the disbandment of the commission argue that for you to send even one of the commissioners home, perhaps you need to file a complaint, a petition in Parliament so that Parliament debates whatever arguments you have with regards to how have they not done their job well, and then it's only after that debate in Parliament that now the President can form a tribunal to investigate further the commissioner or whoever member of the IEBC you have a complaint against. And therefore, the defense of the IEBC commissioners and the entire secretariat has been that there has not been any such formal complaint. All that has been happening is leaders across the political divide raising questions about the credibility question of the commission as a whole and calling for the disbandment of the commission, which many analysts argue is not particular as to if you are calling for the commissioners to be sent home or the total overhaul of the present structure of the IEBC, in which case perhaps you might require an amendment from Parliament to review the entire structure of the IEBC. Akisa.
Thank you very much, Murimi, for giving us that comprehensive report. That was Murimi Mwangi joining us from our city center studios talking about the IEBC and the kind of pressure they are facing, the attacks on its credibility as we head into a general elections, possibilities if there are any of them leaving office before, and what would it mean for them leaving office 3 months after the general elections are scheduled to occur on August the 8th. Let us now take a look at what the law really says about the IEBC. Of course, members of the commission shall be appointed for a single term of 6 years and shall not be eligible for reappointment. The IEBC was formed in 2011. They were sworn in November the 14th in 2011. Their 6 years end in November the 9th of 2017, almost exactly 3 months after the general elections, and are not eligible for any reappointment. So we are not looking at reappointment of any of the 8 commissioners or the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Okay, members of the commission shall serve on a full-time basis, or what we are actually seeing now. The commissioners serve on a full-time basis, all the 8 of them. The commission shall be properly constituted, notwithstanding a vacancy in its membership. And of course, commissioners' term in office to be extended only through a constitutional amendment. And we know when it comes to a constitutional amendment, this will most probably happen after a national referendum. With barely 16 to 17 months to the general election, national referendum maybe could not be possible, but we will be looking at this very, very closely, seeing how it will span up. The IEBC has been facing a lot of attacks from the from members in the political divide. But of course, as I had mentioned earlier, they were sworn in November the 14th, 2011. The commissioners to leave office in November the 9th, and the general elections to be held in August 2017, just 3 months before the IEBC gets out of office. And of course, as I had mentioned earlier, they're not eligible for reappointment, and if there's need for them to have an extension in office, there will be need for a constitutional amendment through a national referendum. Let us now take a short break. Don't go too far. We still have a lot lined up for you. We are looking at the cracks in CORD. Chris Thairo will be joining us later to tell us what is happening in the opposition coalition. Don't go too far. Welcome back. You're watching KTN Newsdesk. Former National Bank of Kenya CEO Munir Ahmed and 3 others are at the CID headquarters for grilling over alleged banking malpractice. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Kenya will start today to provide a facility to any bank or microfinance institution facing liquidity problems through no fault of its own. Speaking to the press on Sunday, CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge reaffirmed that there was no need for panic withdrawals, as the issue with Chase Bank is not the case with all other banking institutions. Chase Bank was placed under receivership on Thursday last week after its gross non-performing loans rose sharply in 2015 financial year.
Coming out as a bank that is focused on customer service?
It's different, straight from the way we're trained and from the recruitment.
The question is, what's the status of Chase Bank? That's really a broad question. I think first and foremost, I want to, and we've made this point before, which is our objective is to open Chase Bank as soon as possible. That we have been very clear about, and that is what we intend to do. The way we are going about that, of course, is talking to the shareholders, and I can say that the conversations with shareholders are going on. We are not here for, at this time of day, on a Sunday for no reason. Of course, it's all those discussions, and also with interested parties, that is suitors, possible suitors. Yes, so we are in negotiations with them, and we hope that there will be a solution for Chase Bank as soon as possible. The question again is, we could look at the institutions and sort of say, okay, it's a conclusion of negotiations and so forth. No. It's not about negotiations. It's about the depositors. those that have money in these institutions, or whose funds are caught up in this institution. I have to say, as you all know, there's a multiplier effect. So Chase Bank obviously is connected to a lot of people, and that's the way the banks are. Every single bank is connected to a whole network of through its depositors, through its staff, to a lot of other people. And that's why it's so important to deal with this problem as soon as possible. So we feel that very strong obligation.
Well, that is CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge giving what is next for the banking sector and on what we should expect going forward. We're now joined by KTN's Abi Agina. Abi, thank you very much for joining us. You've just heard what the CBK Governor has said. What is this particular move aimed at?
Well, looking at this particular move by the CBK, it's basically aimed at liquidifying banks that are facing a crisis, in the sense that if we see a bank that has faced a bank run, where in the case of like Chase Bank, where people withdrew close to 8 billion shillings when they had news that the bank would be placed under receivership. Of course, all this started on social media, Kisa, and so CBK is aiming to ensure that they are able to rescue banks that are genuinely being faced with liquidity issues. Because if you look at a number of cases that have happened, the ordinary way that the customers have responded is by making those quick withdrawals that eventually can affect a bank in terms of it being solvent or insolvent. So really, that's the main aim, and the focus is on banks that have genuine issues when it comes to having a liquidity crisis. So it's not for just any bank that has been caught up in this clean-up exercise by the CBK, which is trying to ensure that there is compliance within the banking industry, Akisa.
With all these panic withdrawals that they're being experienced from depositors, will this particular exercise by the CBK help salvage the situation a bit?
Good question, Akisa. So what CBK is aiming to achieve is, for instance, in the case of Chase Bank, under this facility, they'll be able to loan money to the bank, and the bank that is facing this particular crisis will also be able to ensure it runs effectively, and it doesn't have to be placed under receivership per se. So it's always keen to look at the main reason that is coming out of this particular initiative by the CBK, to avoid a situation where people have billions locked up in their banks, people cannot transact, people are paying school fees, and the list is endless, Akisa.
Finally, just before I let you go, the Rafiki Bank has capped its withdrawals to 10,000 shillings. What does this mean for the particular depositors or consumers from that bank?
So this move by Rafiki Microfinance, which is affiliated to Chase Bank, is aimed at ensuring that they don't experience a bank run where they have massive withdrawals. So CBK is categorical, saying that Rafiki is isolated. They are not affected by Chase Bank's issues. So the customers can rest easy, and they're assured that Rafiki has been doing the right practices. They don't have any case of non-compliance. So this particular initiative has been put in place so that they are able to monitor the withdrawals for now. It's sort of a temporary measure to avoid a situation where the bank ends up being in a cash crisis. Akisa.
Thank you very much for putting that into perspective. That is Abi Agina, our business anchor reporter, just giving us an update on the latest developments for the banking sector. Let us now get into sports. At close of markets, or rather, just as I let Abi Agina go, let us take a look at what happened in the world of sports. Leicester City have officially qualified for Champions League football for the first time next season, following their 2-0 win over Sunderland and Manchester United's 3-0 defeat at Tottenham Hotspurs. The victory at the Stadium of Light took Claudio Ranieri's men onto 72 points, which books a place in the final qualifying round.
Brace in the second half confirmed the win as Claudio Ranieri's men continue their pursuit for silverware, with the Black Cats' 8th season affiliation with the Premier League under threat.
Vardy's in here!
Well, that winds up our bulletin for us. Many thanks for joining us on a KTN Newsdesk. Don't go too far. We still have a lot lined up for you in the second part of this bulletin on KTN News. My name is Akisa Wandera. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and keep it KTN News. Welcome back. You're watching KTN Newsdesk with me, Akisa Wandera. Now, our top story this hour has been the mounting pressure on the IEBC to inspire confidence as we have about 16 months into the general election. And we earlier on joined our political reporter, Murimi Mwangi, who was putting this issue into perspective. The IEBC's term is expected to end 3 months after the general elections in August the 8th. And we were looking at whether this could plunge the country into a constitutional crisis. That is a story that we will be following up on. Of course, religious leaders have weighed in on the issue, telling the IEBC commissioners to pull up their socks and ensure that by the time we get into an election, we have an institution that has that the public has confidence in. But away from that, cracks within the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, called opposition, continued to widen even as a section of its members started questioning an MOU which they claim had been signed between the three principals, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula. According to the members, the principals had agreed that Raila Odinga would only contest for the presidency in the last general elections, while Kalonzo Musyoka was to be the CORD presidential flag bearer come 2017 general elections. Already all the three principals have declared their interest to face President Uhuru Kenyatta at the ballot.
I don't actually see Kalonzo this time round. I mean to play second fiddle. Yeah, he must be having pressure from the Wiper Party. For the Kenya at the same time, also be getting pressure from the 40K supporters, and of course with Raila, I don't see a situation where ODF supporters will allow him to give chances to someone else.
I know there was an MOU. And I was part and parcel of that MOU. And we know very well what people are saying it's true. As we sit here today, we are looking forward to see Kalonzo Musyoka to be our flag bearer in 2017.
And our political reporter Chris Tydro will be joining us later on in the bulletin just to tell us whether really we are facing cracks in the CORD coalition. But into matters security agents have intensified a hunt for terrorists after an attack suspected to have been carried out by the Al-Shabaab militia at a police post in Wajir. The police post is located on the Kenya-Somalia border. 3 people were injured, and this attack revives the question of tackling terror in Kenya, a question that has been closely linked to the presence of Kenyan troops fighting in Somalia. Our reporter Patrick Amimo now examines why it was necessary for Kenya to send its troops to Somalia and the possible exit strategies.
In October 2011, the Kenyan troops crossed into Somalia. The incursion, codenamed Operation Linda Nchi, was triggered by Al-Shabaab's increased activities of abducting tourists along the Kenya-Somalia border. The situation was made worse after Europe and United States of America issued travel advisories warning its citizens to keep off the Kenyan coast. This led to the near collapse of Kenya's tourism sector.
It's not the KDF that's at war, it's Kenya that's at war. We absolutely needed to contain Al-Shabaab outside of our territory. And the only way to do that is to go to where they are.
In November 2011, the Kenyan government agreed to rehart its forces under AMISOM command. Kenya took the responsibility for intelligence and logistics, Uganda operations and engineering, while Burundi took planning and communication. The maximum number of troops allowed for AMISOM is 22,126. Kenya currently has 3,664 troops, after it pulled out a battalion when 850 Sierra Leonean troops arrived. Sierra Leone withdrew its troops in December 2014, and AMISOM has not found a replacement. Kenyan troops have been inside Somalia for 4.5 years, assisting the Somali National Army crush the Al-Shabaab militants. The mission has recorded successes.
Kenya went into Kismayo, the port of Kismayo. Significantly, the issue of the economic backbone of the Al-Shabaab was reduced. If you look at the issue of abductions, it has significantly come down.
By creating a functional, stable, effective state in Somalia, the opportunity for terrorist groups and other miscreants of that ilk to proliferate or be effective is diminished. And so in that sense, KDF, as part of AMISOM, is making a significant contribution to peace, stability, and security in the region.
Although Al-Shabaab insurgents are on a back pedal following AMISOM troops' onslaught, the militants have now adopted hit-and-run tactics and use of vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. They have also targeted soft spots in Kenya. For instance, the Westgate shopping mall attack in September 2013 and the Garissa University attack in April last year.
We are not beating a dead donkey. They're active, aggressive, and we need to counter them. By creating fear, doubts, and a sense of vulnerability in the population, they hope to weaken our resolve and make us look inwards and fail to understand what our long-term interests are. Westgate or Garissa, they're very painful, but we must understand them in the larger context of what these cowardly attackers sought to achieve, and we must deny them that win.
Where the Kenyan government has really scored in terms of reducing these attacks is the issue of utilization of intelligence.
AMISOM was created by the African Union's Peace and Security Council in January 2007, with the UN Security Council approving its mandate a month later. What could be Kenya's exit strategy from Somalia?
We are part of the African Union, which is mandated by the United Nations. And so Kenya pulling out, it would be merely pulling out of people out of a group that is helping support our national security. It doesn't make any sense. And so the exit strategy is the full achievement of the AMISOM and UNSOM missions in Somalia.
The first one, we can use the issue of a time-led exit strategy. Secondly, we can decide to look at the objectives of going into Somalia. Have we achieved the objectives, if there was any in the first place? The third objective that we can use is the issue of the democratic process. Remember that there is an election in Somalia in 2016, this year actually. You remember an election comes with legitimacy. So the Kenyan government actually can ride on the back of the impending elections and say that now, since we have delivered a free and fair election, then we need to move back our troops. The last one, and which I know it will not be very easy, and this is what Al-Shabaab has really tried to force to Kenyans, is what we call the abrupt exit. Remember the Elade. These kind of attacks are actually meant to instill fear and make people to start saying that we need to bring our forces back. Yeah. So if that will happen, if an abrupt exit will happen, then it may be actually catastrophic.
On Friday night, Abdirashid Bukdube, a top Al-Shabaab commander for Janale in the Lower Shabelle region of Somalia, together with 22 other terrorists, were killed following airstrikes and ground offensive against militants' hideouts. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Lands Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi has this morning announced the ministry's plans to issue 1.2 million new title deeds by the end of the year. This is meant to beat Jubilee's target of 3 million title deeds to be issued by the end of 2017. The Jubilee administration has so far issued 2.4 million title deeds. Kaimenyi also announced plans of digitizing the lands registry to reduce the cases of corruption.
We promised the people of Kenya that by 2017 we shall have issued 3 million titles. To date we have issued over 2.4 million titles. And wherever we have been, the cry has always been, since independence, our people have not gotten title deeds. So what have we done as a ministry? We sat down the last 2 weeks and realized that from various sources, whether it's for settlements, quota schemes, whether from cooperatives or whatever, or areas where an education process has not taken place, where there have been complaints to a minister. We looked at all that. And to us, if we can focus on that area, it is possible to get new titles to the tune of 1.2 million titles before 2017. If we can do that, what that means is that come 2017, we shall have well over 4.2 million titles, which is a great achievement, by the way. And most of this is coming from adjudication areas, almost 1 million titles. We looked at the budget, it's not going to be easy. We are talking about over 2 billion shillings. 2 billion shillings for that very important exercise. And what we have done, we have set up 8 teams. 8 teams to go different parts of the country to achieve this particular exercise.
Worshippers of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya at Temo Diocese, Kasipul Kabondo, Homa Bay County, were treated to rude shock after being barred from accessing the church venue for the Sunday service. The worshippers had to camp outside the gates, which were heavily guarded by the police. Church leaders pleaded with the officers for over an hour to be allowed into the church premises. It is believed that the clerics had met earlier and resolved to remove their bishop, Walter Obare, whom they accused of embezzlement of funds and abuse of office. However, they were later allowed to worship, though the service was held outside.
We are harmless. Several pastors have died because of poverty. Apeani pesa. Tazama leo hii amepea maaskari pesa. Wachungaji, wainjilisti, watumishi, deaconesses, they are suffering. There is nothing. Hawapati pesa, lakini badala yake anachukua maaskari anawalipa, analeta kuweka mlangoni.
Ndio recently this year ameuza shamba kubwa. Ilikuwa na jengo, ameuza yote, Westlands ameuza. Na ukienda kwa kanisa hapo head office, Uhuru Highway hapo, yeye ndio bishop hapo. Kijana yake ndio anamsaidia kijana yake kutoka tumbo yake. Sasa hiyo ni nini? Nepotism.
Kanisa limeenda kombo kwa maongozi yake. Yeye achali wa Kristo, anachali maslahi yake tu.
And away from the country, Sudan's conflict-hit Darfur region starts voting this morning on whether to unify, or started voting this morning on whether to unify the five states, a long-standing demand of rebels seeking greater autonomy. Ongoing instability means, however, that insurgents will be boycotting the referendum. The three-day vote is expected to maintain the five-state system, which President Omar al-Bashir's ruling party says is more efficient, but which observers say gives Khartoum greater control over Darfur. The ethnic minority insurgents who rebelled against the Arab-dominated government in 2003, claiming their region was being marginalized, say the vote cannot be fair because of ongoing fighting. At least 300,000 people have been killed in the 13-year-old conflict. But Bashir, wanted by the International Criminal Court on war crimes charges related to Darfur, has insisted the situation is stable enough for voting to go on. His ruling National Congress Party says 5 state governments are better able to care for the people of Darfur than a single administration. And moving on, strong tremors are felt in Pakistan after a 6.6 magnitude earthquake strikes South Asia, leaving 27 people with minor injuries in the northwestern city of Peshawar. Just over a decade ago, a 7.6 magnitude quake in another part of northern Pakistan killed about 75,000 people. Zinze Kibiku has the details.
Strong tremors were felt in Pakistan, forcing people to leave their homes and shops after an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.6 struck South Asia on Sunday. The U.S. Geological Service said the quake was centered near western Pakistan, close to the Afghan border at a depth of 210 kilometers, shaking buildings in Pakistan, Afghanistan and India. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties. People in northwestern frontier city of Peshawar rushed to the streets as the tremors hit.
She fell down during the tremors as she ran outside saying an earthquake has struck. If they don't provide medicine in this situation, what shall we do?
An emergency was declared at hospitals and cities. As many as 27 people with minor injuries were brought to Peshawar's Lady Reading Hospital.
So far, we have received 27 injured here, all 27 with minor injuries. There has been no collapse of a building. No one has serious injuries. We have sent 18 to 20 people home after giving them first aid.
The office assistants at Lahore's meteorological office said the recordings showed the earthquake's depth at 203 kilometers. A 7.5 magnitude quake struck the area on October 26 last year, killing more than 300 people and destroying thousands of homes. The Hindu Kush area bordering Pakistan and Afghanistan is a systematically active area, with quakes often felt across the region. Zinzi Kibiku, KTN News.
Now, John Kerry became the first U.S. Secretary of State to visit the memorial of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima earlier today, but an aide ruled out any apology by Washington over the U.S. attack on the Japanese city. Kerry, who was accompanied by other G7 foreign ministers, is the highest-ranking administration official to pay his respects at the revered site of the World War II bombing, the world's first nuclear attack. His trip comes as White House officials say President Barack Obama is considering a stop in the city late next month around the time of a Group of 7 summit, which is being held in another part of the country. Kerry's visit and speculation that Obama may also go to Hiroshima have prompted suggestions that Washington may be considering an official apology over the August 1945 bombing, which killed 140,000 people. And moving on to Somalia, some brave Kenyan and Ugandan citizens have taken up football coaching jobs in a bid to raise talent in a country still battered and recovering from decades of conflict. Now that the country is enjoying relative stability, the Somalia Football Federation is ready to up their participation in international football. Trixie Ngado reports.
2 years ago, former Ugandan striker Hussein Balangu took a job many would not dare. He is the head coach of Mogadishu-based Banadir Football Club, and observers say he has done wonders for the team. Somalia's football league is experiencing a revival thanks to relative stability after more than 2 decades of civil war and Al-Shabaab militant rule in large parts of the country until 2011, when they were driven out of Mogadishu by African Union and Somali troops. Balangu says he has never been involved in any violence in Mogadishu, even as Al-Shabaab frequently launches guerrilla-style attacks in the city.
The security is okay. I don't have any problem because I do what I want, and even I have security personnel who are guiding us because we stay in the camp. And since I came, I've never seen or I've never heard any disturbance.
There are about 20 foreign players playing in Somalia's football league. Average pay for foreign players is $50 per month, better than what some earn in their home teams.
When I'm in Somalia, I'm comfortable because the game, football is my life. So when I'm playing football, it's like I enjoy everything in Somalia.
But the relocation has not been without its challenges. For the foreigners, there remains a fragile security situation in the country. The players and coach need armed guards. Balangu says the weather also takes some getting used to.
The main challenge here is the weather. Because I'm a man from Uganda. Uganda don't have this type of weather. The sun is too hot. Even the way the soil is sandy in our country, there is this type of soil. So, but now I'm used.
FIFA resumed its activities in Somalia in 2013 after being absent for over 20 years while Somalia was at war. These days, matches at the National Stadium in Mogadishu, a former fort for African Union forces, is host to matches almost every weekend. The Somali National League has 8 teams participating in matches. Banadir FC is at the top of the standings.
This year we're getting ready for the Premier as we are getting help from our coach Mbalangu Hussein, and he is a Muslim. He gives us good training and we practice it, and we hope that we shall win the Premier, and we are leading the game unbeaten.
Tickets to league games are less than $1, and although not many can afford to attend every weekend, there is widespread fan support. However, funding and sponsorship for the teams remains a challenge, says Banadir FC manager Abukar Mohammed Sheikh. Federation officials say football has played a key role in diverting youth from taking up arms and engaging in conflict over the years.
We only get money from Haas Petroleum Company. We can use that for the advertisement, and with that money we can run the team, but we do not get any financial support from the government or any local or international NGOs.
Trix Ingado, KTN News, Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Trix Ingado, for that report. That wraps it up for us on KTN Newsdesk. Up next, we have News Track, where we will be taking a look at stories that are making headlines this hour. My name is Akisa Wandera. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and keep it KTN News.